welcome to members of the public and staff and councillors, Deputy Mayor. Lovely to have you all here, and also out there in the wider world. Shani, we're starting now. Good as gold, thank you very much. Councillor Kingi, would you be able to give us a blessing? Nice to see you, Councillor Kingi. Blessing for the day. Thank you.
Kapai, Your Worship. Kia ora everybody. Tuia ki te mauri o te whenua. Tuia ki te mana o te tangata. Tuia ki te pono, te aroha. Kia piki, kia eke. Ki te taumata. Hui e, tae ki e.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kingi. Much appreciated. Right, going to the items of business today. We have number one is apologies, and I believe we have apology from Councillor Mack, definitely, but he's on international duties. Councillor Leonard, is Councillor Leonard joining us on Zoom? Are you there, Councillor Leonard? Go. Thank you very much, Councillor Leonard. So just the one apology today. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Park. Seconded by Councillor Westerman. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Any conflicts of interest pertaining to the items today? No. We'll then carry on. 3.1, confirmation of the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting that was held on the 26th of April 2022. Any points of clarification of those minutes? No? Could I have a mover for those minutes be accepted? Thank you, Councillor Boddy, seconded by Councillor Guy. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 4.1, new public road names. Tauhara Management Limited, Kokamea Village. And we have Mrs. Louise Wood. Hi Louise, how are you? Nice to see you. Yeah, just press the, thank you. Cool.
I'm well, thanks.
Good. We have your item here.
Yes, so this is the first bit of the East Urban Lands subdivision. I hope you all know about it. It's a council subdivision that was granted back in 2009. Actually, it was a master plan, sorry. So it's quite exciting seeing it all finally come to fruition. And it's a set of new road names for the subdivision, which are required, obviously, before the subdivision goes through. And they've consulted with Tauhara, who've actually suggested these names, and they all have a theme of water related. Yeah.
Very good. Thanks, Louise. Yeah, cool. Those who contributed to our Rayo classes, would they like to pronounce them? Naru, Tai, Ripo,
Manga,
Ruku,
Uta, Tatahi.
Excellent. Well done. Thank you very much, Louise. Is there any questions of Louise? No, all pretty straightforward. So we have a recommendation up there. Could I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Rankin, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Louise.
Thanks very much.
Good to see you. Was it? Okay. Good theme, and as you did right, it's good to see this development taking off. Exciting stuff. All right. 4.2, Taupō Airport Authority request for funding. Mr. Andrew Peckham. Good afternoon, Andrew.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, councillors. So you have in front of you a request from the Taupō Airport Authority for funding, and the paper proposes a loan from Taupō District Council of $300,000, of which $200,000 would be drawn and used for the operating cash flow of the airport, and $100,000 would remain undrawn in reserve should it be required. It's been a long conversation to get to this point with the Taupō Airport loan. We first started talking about the potential to have to loan the airport some money back in July last year, and at the time we were talking about a much smaller amount, around $50,000. Since then, there have been some changes, and I'll talk through those very quickly. The first is we've had a further deterioration in trading, and that's been driven by COVID. So that conversation started with $50,000 mooted in July last year. We subsequently had the August COVID lockdown, And then after that, of course, we've had the sort of slowdown from COVID in the first few months of this year. The total impact from COVID we estimate is around about 100,000 on near-term cash flow. The total life of COVID, I guess, impact is more like 250,000, but in near-term cash flow, we're talking about 100,000. Some of that's in the future as well. We are forecasting that we'll continue to have some challenges from Omicron and potential other impacts from COVID as we move forward. So that's the first thing. The second is the cropping contract. So the airport is developing some land around the periphery of the airport for cropping. We've chosen an option which involves higher upfront costs to clear some of the land and develop some of the land. The flip side of that is that we'll be able to derive greater cropping revenue in the long term. The cash flow impact of that, though, is that there's quite a sting. There's about $110,000 in the near-term cash flow that the airport will be funding to develop that land. That's a significant investment, but as I say, it will pay back in the longer term from higher cropping revenue. None of the loan that we're proposing will be used for the Taupō Airport Terminal project. That project at the moment is tracking largely to budget. In your council pack today, you'll see that project is tagged as showing with a traffic light of red in terms of budget. What that's indicating is a significant risk. It's running reasonably low on contingency, having used about 75% of the contingency already. But there is still contingency intact. It's not technically over budget, it's tracking within budget. And we wouldn't, if there was a shortfall with that project, we wouldn't be funding it through this mechanism. We would be coming back to council to talk about the reasons why that was over budget if it did get to that point. So it won't be funded from this. And finally, I just recognise that, you know, with the airport being in the situation where it has debt for the first time in a long time, we just recognise the need to manage the airport finances very carefully in this period. Those of you on the TAA committee will know that we've put in place a finance business partner who's working more closely now with airport management. We've got better reporting through to the TAA committee around the finances, and we're hoping to improve that further and make it more timely. And also, the airport's focus really now is on continuing to recover from COVID and to build their revenue up again, and to get that new terminal, that wonderful new terminal online and rocking. So perhaps I'll leave it there and just ask for any questions.
Okay, thanks, Andrew. Questions? Councillor Boddy?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the first page, it talks towards the bottom under discussion. It talks about the appropriate margin on the added to the interest rate. And it then states the TAA's shadow credit rating. What's that actually mean? Is it shallow or shadow credit rating?
The TAA, thank you, Councillor Boddy, the TAA doesn't have its own standalone credit rating. Shadow credit rating is a credit rating that PricewaterhouseCoopers will create theoretically in order to try and assess the credit margin that we should apply. It's just to make sure that we get an arm's length transaction where we're charging them a reasonable interest rate. We're not overcharging them or undercharging them.
Okay, thank you. And just finally, Mr. Chairman, in regards to the options, Council provides loans and facilities to AA, margin added to interest rate to reflect risk of TAA, or is it to TAA? Who's the risk to?
The risk is to council. The council is making the loan, so the risk, when we talk about the credit risk, the risk falls back to council. It's the theoretical risk, I guess, of TAA not repaying the money, but we would see that to be a very small risk.
Thank you, Councillor Boddy. Councillor Westerman?
Just under financial considerations, Andrew, it talks about 17,000 to engage the Treasury and tax advisors. That seems a reasonable large amount if it's an internal sort of loan setup.
Thank you, Councillor Westerman. It's always a reasonable amount when you engage these big firms to do this work, but unfortunately we need that expertise to make sure that we're making a good loan, that we've got our documentation all straight, and that we don't fall foul of any legislation or laws around what we can and can't do with the airport being a council-controlled entity. So we're just making sure we're getting that bang on, and that's the cost of doing that, unfortunately.
Cool. Any other questions of Andrew? Okay, Councillor Guy.
Yes, not a question, but I think an observation just around the ability for further revenue coming once the terminal is complete with the car park, extra levy on Air New Zealand for the passenger levy, and the cropping, of course, being sustainable for future years.
Thank you, Councillor Guy. Yeah, very much a focus of the airport management, and we want them to be focused on bringing those revenue streams online successfully and making the most of the great situation that they're in with that wonderful new terminal out there in car park.
Very good. Okay, well, thank you for outlining the reasons, confirming the reasons there, Andrew. Appreciate it. It's not something we enjoy doing, but in this case, you've got some good reasons there. So, thank you very much. Suggested recommendation there. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Guy. Seconded by Councillor Williamson. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you, Andrew. Right. 4.3. Contact Energy Land Transactions. Good afternoon, Mr. Philip King. How are you, Philip? Good.
Bringing this paper back to you this afternoon for 5 various land transactions with Contact Energy that are in favour of Taupō District Council for the tune of $375,000. And you'll recall we brought this paper to Council in March and were directed to go and do some additional work and refresh some valuations. Came back together for a workshop in April and now bring this paper back to you in May. So the 5 various land transactions around the district that have the opportunity to open up some commercial land, both for the Taupō Trust for the Clean Energy Park out at Rakanui Road, and also for us to develop some of our own land, which is at the moment restrained by some covenants at at Crown Road and Mahoe Street. I would take the paper as read, but I have got Greg Stebbing here today, who represents as a director with the Taupō Trust, who represent the 5 hapu that are investing in the Rakanui Road 45 hectare clean energy park out there. And also got Craig Stevenson here, who's interested in just being along today to see how we roll out, and he's able to answer any questions that we might have of a technical nature around, he's a commercial development manager there at Contact Energy. Aside from taking the paper as read, there's just one addition since we've last met, since the paper went up. In fact, the land, the Rakanui block, has actually changed hands, so it's now no longer owned by Contact Energy. It's now owned by the Taupō Energy Trust, or the Clean Energy Park Partnership Limited. So there's a variation or an addition to the resolution where we'd say that the 4 parcels of land would be agreed to sales and purchases would be between Taupō District Council and Contact Energy, but a further delegation, or further delegation would be, or resolution would be, that we would sell that final parcel of land, which is the Rakanui Energy Corridor on 887 Rakanui Road, would sell that directly to the Clean Energy Park entity. So I'd hand it over for any questions or further discussion that we might have.
Okay, thanks Philip. Indeed, welcome Greg and Craig. Good to have you here. Thank you. All right, there might be some questions. Just first one from me. You were suggesting a change in the resolution?
Change in the resolution, yeah. We've worked through a bit of a draft there that provides further delegation to. Is that up on the board there, Shane, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Cool. It's up there. Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Your Worship. And thanks, PK, for bringing this back. I'm happy with what we've done. I think this is a 3-way mutually beneficial land moving around, for want of a better way of putting it. It benefits all the parties involved, and the concerns we had have been addressed around currency of valuation, so I see no further issues with it. And unless there's any other conversation, I'm happy to move accordingly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Park?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This, as long as I've been around this table, this has been sitting in, you know, on the books. I just would feel more comfortable though if we can proceed with the 4 land transactions between council and contact for the amount. I'd like to see that just recorded in the resolution,
Okay.
as opposed to someone having to then look for the information in the minuted documents as opposed to resolutions.
Right, yep. We can do that. So we'd separate out the numbers. So we would, the 4 transactions would be 375 minus 46 and 115, which is 260 minus 46, so 214.
So sorry, you're suggesting a change to the resolution?
Well, I just don't know of any other land transaction resolutions we've ever done where we haven't stated the amount that the land would be sold for. I just wanted to tidy
Yeah.
up the resolutions.
Yeah, we can do that. I think it's 214 is the number we're looking at. I'll just quickly calculate it.
Is the mover happy?
Yes,
214.
Your Worship, and that actually makes perfect sense because the paper as it's written, if we're going to take it as read, which we can't because the numbers don't reflect
Correct.
what we've just had presented, so we do need to include that in there, yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Maybe we do as Andrew suggested, we put the individual numbers for each transaction there, so move the table in.
The individual, so it's Oranui subsurface. It's everyone except 887 Rakanui. Yeah, we just,
Yep.
Any other comments?
Yeah,
Councillor Body?
Just a comment, it might, might just be my English, but the item 3 there where it goes to sign the sale, blah, blah, agreements in accordance with the above resolution unless the arrangements are significantly different. Well, they are significantly different. Should it be if? I mean, it just might be the use of that word.
So the question is number 3, is that correct?
Well, yes, it's the word unless the agreements. What it's saying there, the chief executive will sign, etc., unless. So does that mean unless, which it is, it's significantly different, you can't sign?
Help me out.
I think, Councillor Body, I think if we're, through the chair, if we're amending number 2 to put the actual dollar values in there, then with number 3 we can just delete from unless onwards, so that it just says delegates authority to the chief executive to sign the sale and purchase agreements in accordance with the above resolutions, full stop. So do that?
By doing that, we negate that last sentence or so. Okay, thank you.
That's right.
Cool. Okay, any other questions?
Copy those 2
of
numbers out. You will copy and cut them.
Philip?
I can take a question from here
Yeah, no.
on my knees.
I can,
No, we'll just get
I can
that
back.
tidied up, that recommendation. Greg, thank you. Welcome, gentlemen. Nice to have you here and exciting stuff. And thank you, Craig. As you know, these negotiations have been taking a long time, these encumbrances and whatever. So can you pass our thanks on to Contact Energy for finally resolving this? It's great and it's exciting for your company, Greg. So we look forward to
214.
progress on that piece of land. Get the power at a cheap price.
And that becomes
Very good.
a total
So you wish,
Question, Councillor Taylor?
yeah, just on item 1, you need to change it from 4 to 3 parcels of land there, just
Yeah.
complete accuracy. Sorry, Shane, he makes me work.
She's going well.
total is 155, 161. $161 yet. And it should equal 275. We've got the maths right there, not the calculator. Actually.
Yep, it's, Refinery Road. Oh, I see Refinery, and yeah, both Refinery Roads, yeah, okay, cool. All right, the mover, amended resolution there. You okay with that, Councillor
Yes.
Taylor? And
I'll remove.
yeah, remove, cool.
Sorry, move
Were you
again rather.
seconding, Councillor Park, yeah. Okay, gentlemen and ladies, it has been moved by Councillor Taylor and seconded by Councillor Park, now up on the screen there. All those in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much, Philip. Thanks, Craig. Thank you, Greg. Right, we carry on. Okay, 4.4, Taupō District Council Performance Report. Mr. Andrew Peckham. Welcome back, Andrew.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, Councillors. It's my pleasure to present the Council Performance Report for the month of April 2022. As always, I'll take the report as read, including the CEO's wonderful commentary up front. The strategic priorities this month, I think you'll agree, make really good reading, making some really good progress on some of the things that matter most to our community and to council. A couple of comments on the finances. Finances, we are tracking very well against our revenue targets, right on target for rates, and of course tracking well ahead on subsidies and grants, which highlights some of those wonderful subsidies and grants that you as a council have been able to bring in through our partners, mostly in central government. We are tracking, as we have been for a number of months this year, we are tracking lower than budget on expenditure, but still cognizant that that could catch up in the last few months of the year. As you'll notice around the place at the moment, there's a lot of maintenance going on, particularly on roads. And that's where we've been behind on expenditure for a lot of this year. So a lot of maintenance activity happening right now, and we do expect some big bills in May and June will get us back closer to budget for our total expenditure for the year. On the project side of things, in my previous report in this meeting about the airport, I spoke briefly about the airport project. The airport project, despite being showing as red here in terms of the budget, is tracking to budget at the moment, although with very little contingency remaining with that project. We are watching that very closely and carefully. We're just flagging that it red at the moment, probably possibly should be orange, but we're flagging that it's red because we want you to be aware that that is going to come down to the wire, that project, in terms of getting it over the line within the budget. I also mention, we'll just proactively mention Project Quantum, which is our system refresh. That's showing in here as now being slightly behind, well, it is behind budget, but behind timing. It's behind on timing and behind on budget. That project in particular, the challenge there is with data migration. So the software that we're moving to has a vastly different data model to our previous software, and we're just grappling with that at the moment. It's a very important part of the project to be able to bring the data over from our previous systems into that new system. We will get there. It is just a matter of time and resource challenges at the moment, but we will get there, and it is a long-term foundational project for us, so it's worth taking the time to make sure we get it right. I'll perhaps leave it there, Your Worship, and just take questions.
Cool. Thank you, Andrew. Questions of Andrew. Councillor Park.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just with the airport upgrade, it would be fair to say that the reduced contingency would be related to the increase in inflation and material costs?
Yes, it is mostly related to the increase in material costs and construction inflation. You're absolutely right. We do still have some contingency intact there, so we started with a contingency of just over 400,000. We've got 25% of it, so just over 100,000 remaining in contingency. We are now from this point forward, we will just have to make careful choices with that project to make sure that anything that is left as a risk, anything which is not fully costed yet or where costs could still come out of the woodwork, that we manage that carefully. But you're right, that inflation has been a real risk on that project.
And which is affecting all projects, not just the airport.
All projects.
Thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
And so Andrew, just looking at the numbers then, 45% complete on projects, 75% contingency gone. I hear what you're saying. How confident are we that the remaining 55% of the project is not going to chew up more than 25% of the contingency that remains?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. 45% complete on the project, but 75% contingency gone. The risk, although we're 45% complete on the project, I'd say we're more like 85% contracted in terms of the total cost on the project. So we are still building, but a good amount of the building that's ahead of us is already contracted in.
Yeah, so I think you probably could have asked that simpler. So the things which are likely to have chewed up the contingency have already been sorted. Is that
many of them have? That's
Great,
right,
thank you.
and that's what I was alluding to in my answer to Councillor Park earlier. Was just there are a few last little things, many of them cosmetic things and design features with the interior of the building. We just have to manage them carefully as we go forward, and if we have to make choices not to do things for now because we don't have the budget, we'll have to make those choices and bring them back to you.
Cool. And you're personally keeping an eye on that one, Andrew?
I am.
Thank you.
I am.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Councillor Body.
Mr. Chairman, just to confirm, how do you work if you have a contingency on a project, like we had done with the Rising Main, where it was found at the end the contingency was used? This seems to have been used part way through the build. So you put the windows in and suddenly you're short, so there's another $10 goes. How does that work that way if you've already used 75%?
I'm not sure I fully understand the question, Councillor Body, but I have a swing at it, shall I? The contingency on this project has been intact, has been in the mix from the start. So we have a 5% contingency in relation to the airport. So it's at $400,000 on a $9 million, nearly a $9 million build. That's a very low contingency for a construction project. You would normally, in this market, you'd be looking for more like 15 to 20% contingency on a commercial building like this. So we've always had a contingency, it's just been very low. And we have used that as we go along, and that the use of that contingency is visible to the steering committee of the airport build. I guess now we're just flagging that we're getting to the point where we feel like we've exhausted a good amount of it.
Effectively, it would be true to say that it's been based on cost increases. So it's part of the total funding. Thank you.
It is part of the total funding.
But what you're saying is most of it's contracted. The balance of the contingency could be used up just on cosmetics.
Could be, yeah.
Yeah.
We'd hope not to. It's not a good strategy to land your plane just as you run out of fuel, and so we try to avoid that in particular, and that's particularly true at the airport. So no, look, we'd hope to finish the project as we do with all our projects, with some of the contingency remaining intact. We certainly don't try and spend up to the limit of it. We try and keep it intact.
Sorry,
I
Councillor
suppose through the
Williams.
chair, we probably have to keep in mind contingency is not a target either, but obviously with COVID and inflation, etc., we have to be very realistic as well.
100%, yeah.
Councillor Park.
Yeah, it would, you put it into perspective when you talk about it being a $9 million build, and I know that there have been other council projects in the past where facilities like the Great Lakes Centre or the Taupō Event Centre have had different things removed to meet budget as opposed to being done once and being done properly. So I would hate to think that even though we want to keep this within budget, I would hate to think that we would cut our nose off despite our face to save a few bucks for getting it right the first time.
I totally agree with you, Councillor Park, and look, that's one of the wonderful things about the steering committee structures that we have over these projects, and in particular this steering committee, which includes a number of the councillors. They certainly keep us honest on that and stick to that principle of doing it once, doing it right.
Very good. Thank you very much, Andrew. No other questions, Andrew? No, the suggested resolution there that we note the information contained in the report. Do I have a mover, please? Thank you, Councillor Guy, seconded by Councillor Kingy. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against? Carried.
Against.
Against.
I made my comments this morning as to why.
Yeah.
So I'd like it recorded as well, please.
Cool. Thanks very much, Councillor Body. Right.
Thank you.
Council engagements. Thank you, Andrew. 4.5. Are there any changes, Shani? No? All as per the agenda item. Thank you. Anyone want to add anything?
It's a stupid question, Mr. Chairman. Towards the end, it made comment of the candidates briefing, but the candidates opens on the 15th of August. What are those? Are they similar to what we discussed this morning in regards to that advert?
So these are for potential candidates for us to explain what is what's required, what the process is, and what they can expect.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Okay, the move of those engagements. Thank you, Councillor Truman. Seconded by Councillor Park. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against? Carried. Members' reports. 4.6. Councillor Body. Councillor Guy.
Just that Amplify had its Tech Week, very successful Tech Week, and I attended the Women in Tech event on the Friday. Waiora House, Airport Terminal roof completion, attended that, and of course the KRG, or the Kinloch Representative Group, meeting last Thursday, and also attended a Contact Energy Community discussion group on Thursday.
Very good. Thank you very much, Councillor Guy. Councillor Kingy, Councillor Rankin. Nothing there. Yeah, nice to have you back too. Councillor Westerman, Councillor Truman. Councillor Turner, Councillor Park.
I attended the Waikato Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee meeting yesterday, and which all things are on track. The legislation around changes to the Emergency Management Act have been delayed until later in the year. It seems to be the piece of legislation that the government have been prepared to push out a bit as a tokenism, considering all the other reforms and other bills before the House at the moment, and also came along with a couple of other councillors and sat with staff for the Local Government New Zealand Taitura Awards last week, where we were luckily enough to win an award for the Mana Whakahono Orohi agreement with Ngāti Turangi-Tongariro. So congratulations to all the staff on that great work.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Park. Councillor Williamson.
Thank you, Worship. Yeah, pretty quiet. I attended Christine's brother-in-law's funeral on Friday, was it? And also Thursday, and also Adrian Jurison, a well-known local celebrity. We know his son Tony Jurison and Tony Orr, a well-known family, so otherwise fairly quiet week.
Thank you, Councillor Williamson. Okay, could I just have a mover for those? Thank you, Councillor. Oh, sorry. Kylie. Thanks, Kylie. Very good. Okay, thank you, councillors. Have a mover, please. Thank you, Councillor Westerman, seconded by Councillor Taylor. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against? Carried. Well, that's the public part of the meeting. If I could have a mover into confidence. Thank you, Councillor Guy, seconded by Councillor Westerman. Thank you. All those in favour, please say aye. It's against? Carried. Okay, we'll just